We as humans are constantly making judgments. Most judgments are automatic. We don't even realize we've made them. Others are more conscious and require extra thinking. Thinking Fast and Slow by Daniel Kahneman explores biases of intuition in their many forms and how they can be explained with two modes of thought. Our brains use two different modes of thought. Sometimes they work together quite nicely. Sometimes they contradict each other. Each system is plagued by its own cognitive biases. System 1 is fast. It's intuitive, emotional, and most dangerously confident. It doesn't take any effort to use it. It's automatic. System 1 is associated with memory and skill. We use it when we drive, read an angry facial expression, or recall something, like the Pledge of Allegiance or our age. System 2 is more conscious than System 1. It's slower. It's used for concentration and deliberation and problem solving. This system requires much more effort than System 1, which is why we like to avoid it. We typically express this avoidance as heuristics or biases in our decision making. In other words, we make bad decisions because we're lazy. It's natural for System 1 to generate overconfident judgments. This is because confidence is determined by how coherent the best story is that you can tell from the evidence that you have. We're pattern seekers. We're believers in a coherent world. But the world makes much less sense than you think, makes much less sense than you want to think. The coherence comes mostly from the way your mind works. System 1, our fast, intuitive thinking, connects causes and effects. It attempts to make stories that are coherent, that make sense, that we understand. In order to do this, we infer many things just based on our observations of the world. And if we find something that doesn't have a cause, we make one up. Our minds don't stop at what we don't know. They just make the best possible use of what we do know. So we jump to conclusions in this way, constantly, because we feel better believing the world makes sense and is predictable. Biases are all about cognitive ease. We take shortcuts and cut corners to make things easier on our brains. And it feels good to not have to use your brain too much, and it's easy, and since we like to feel good, we trust things that reduce cognitive strain. This is called the law of least effort, and it explains a lot of biases. The law of least effort is why System 2 sometimes fails to keep System 1 in check. System 2 is supposed to be skeptical, but disbelief requires a lot of work, and work is hard, so sometimes we trust our intuition when we shouldn't. The world is an unpredictable place, so as long as we're trying to make predictions about what's going to happen, errors are inevitable. So when something surprising does happen, what we do is we adjust our worldview to accommodate that surprise. We want more than anything to know what's going to happen. So we convince ourselves that we can know this, but we can't. These illusions are comforting. They reduce the anxiety we would experience if we allowed ourselves to fully acknowledge the uncertainties of existence. When you're making a big plan, like what to do after high school maybe, or who you're going to marry, it's really important to weigh all the gains and all the losses and all the probabilities that have anything to do with that choice you're making. And a good way to do this is to consult other cases, to see what happened to other people that did the thing you're about to do. Unfortunately, it's much more common for people to be driven by optimism, and people tend to assume the best case scenario and not bother looking at anything else because you don't want to think about anything bad that might happen. So it's this certainty is very common and somewhat unreasonable expectation. We make choices all the time, and each choice comes with an evaluation of the choice once you've made it. What you need to know is that each evaluation of each choice is made relative to a reference point. If I'm late to school every day and one day I'm on time, that'll seem really good. That'll seem like a gain to me. Whereas if someone is early every day and one day they're on time, that's a loss. They're late. So your reference point is different than everyone else's, but to you, it's neutral. Reference points are dangerous because their neutrality is only perceived. So it's important not to focus too much on that point when making any decision. Fear of regret plays a huge role in decision making. This fear is usually triggered by the availability of alternatives to reality. So if you can imagine that something better could have happened had you made a different choice, you'll regret whatever choice you made. And the easier it is to imagine these alternative outcomes, the easier it is to feel regret. We're biased against actions that could lead to regret because we worry so much about keeping score. Nothing really happens to you if you regret something, but it's just this feeling you have that you want to get rid of. So we let things like money or the name of a college we attend act as points on this scale of self-regard. And the awards and punishments are all in our heads. But that's a powerful thing. They shape our preferences and they move all of our actions, and as a result, we refuse to cut losses when doing so would admit failure. Let's talk about college again. Don't freak out. It is a huge life choice, and it's a huge change. But remember that nothing in life is as important as you think it is when you're thinking about it. Adaptation to a new situation consists of thinking less and less about it until it just becomes the new norm, which is what will happen to you. The focusing illusion makes us exaggerate the effects of changes on our future well-being. Although humans are not irrational, they often need a little help to make more accurate judgments and better decisions. So what do we do about biases? Kahneman says the best you can do is just recognize you're in a cognitive minefield, slow down, and ask for reinforcement from System 2. As a decision maker, trust your critics. Expect your decisions to be judged on how they were made, not how they turn out.